So I'm sort of going through a transitional phase in my life, which is kind of what prompted me to start this channel. And there are a lot of different ideas for the kind of things I want to discuss here, but today I was feeling a little bit unmotivated, and I thought that, I found this Booktube Newbie Tag, and I thought this would be a good way to just break the ice a little bit, and also to kind of get me out of this unmotivated sort of rut. You might be able to see from my slightly spare room right now that I kind of am in between phases. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? And partly it is because I want to kind of share my love of books and talk about what I'm reading and also kind of keep track of it as well. But I think as a whole, my reason for starting this channel is kind of twofold. I think one, I really needed a place to express my creativity and to document it, mainly for myself, as a way to keep me inspired and keep me pursuing creative things. This might turn into a bit of a tangent, but I think, I graduated from university about over 3 years ago now, and I've since just kind of been working jobs that I didn't really enjoy or was a little bit miserable in. I've hit my mid-20s now, and I think it's really starting to hit me that I don't feel fulfilled in my life, and the way for me to feel fulfilled is to do creative things. And so the things I want to document on this channel are what I'm reading and my books and my sort of literary interests and ambitions as well, because I like to write as well. And also a place for maybe some artistic things. I like to draw and paint and all of those things as well. And so the first thing is I just want to document my creativity for myself. And the second thing is that I really want to look for people who are similar to me, or who share similar interests. The really big reason for starting it is to try to find a community. So if there is somebody who's watching this who likes to talk about books or art in general, like, I would really love for you to stick around, or at least to interact with me. I just need some friends. So the second question is, what are some unique things that you bring to Booktube? I think for me, it's the fact that I have sort of a English degree perspective on certain things. A lot of the reading that I do and the way I approach reading is really colored by my English degree, and sometimes people talk about that like that's sort of a negative thing. A lot of people say that once you start reading critically, you can't enjoy books in the same sort of leisurely way. I don't think that's necessarily true. I do have certain reading habits or maybe certain patterns that come from having studied literature in a very critical way. But I also think it has informed a lot of interesting opinions that I might be able to share when it comes to the books that I read, and just generally my approach to reading. I mean, something I'm hoping that this channel can really add to the conversation is an emphasis on slowing down and like reading things more closely and what that means. I have a lot of ideas for the kind of videos that I could do to kind of show my approach to reading. And maybe I'm not explaining that very well here, but I'm hoping that's something that will be a little bit different. And hopefully I'll be able to have some interesting conversations with people. Next question is, what are you most excited for about this new channel? I think I'm just hoping engagement. I'm just hoping to find at least a handful of people that I can talk to about my interests. And if I'm able to get that, I did have one commenter on I think 2 of my videos that I've already posted sort of about poetry, and that was very exciting to me because this person was sort of engaging in a conversation with me, and that's really what I'm looking for and what I'm most excited for. Why do you love reading? I think a lot of things. When I was younger, I think it was an antidote to loneliness, and it was an escape from anxieties. I had a lot of social anxiety as a kid, and I think reading really helped me. And ultimately, reading as much as I did allowed me to do really well academically. And I think in the past, it used to be a way for me to justify not having to socialize. But now, as an adult, I think reading for me is it's about self-affirmation, and it's also about greater empathy for others. I think when I graduated and ventured out into the real world and realized the true selfishness of people. It's funny because as a kid, I was always very much in my academic world, sort of blocked out the world around me a lot. And then at university level, I was also quite in a bubble. As soon as I kind of came out into the real world and realized that not everybody is an avid reader, not everybody has a lot of empathy, there's a lot of selfishness in the world, I think that kind of really hit me in my early 20s. And now I'm sort of returning to reading as an adult in their mid-20s who really values what that can just do for you in terms of your empathy and your recognition and acceptance and understanding of the human condition. The next question is, what book or series got you into reading? This is really difficult because I've always read. I think the first book I have a memory of reading is like the Amelia Bedelia series. So maybe it was that. Or the Bearstein Bears. Those are really good too. So the next question is, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? So I don't think I have any favorite booktubers per se. And I don't really idolize people online. I think that's kind of weird. And I've been watching booktube since I was at least a teenager. Well, so some of the channels I really like to watch is Eric Carl Anderson. I've watched his stuff since I was a teenager. And Lena Norms, I really like her stuff as well since I was a teenager. But there are too many to name, honestly, that I've been watching over the years, on and off. I think rather than asking them a specific question, I would just like to have a coffee with them and talk about what we're both reading. Okay, next question is, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? So since I'm completely new, and I think there's 9 people who are watching me and 1 or 2 of them comment, but I think the biggest hurdle right now is just finding people and having people find me. Hoping this tag might make a difference to that. When did you start reading? When did I start reading? Probably as soon as I was able to. Actually, this actually reminds me, I think I remember I really struggled to learn to read as a kid. I think it would be 2nd grade, because I used to really struggle to read, but I was very adamant that I wanted to learn it. And I'm not sure why. I always had this affinity for language, but for some reason I really did struggle in the beginning to learn to read. And the funny thing is, I realized this as an adult because I think it is a little bit tied to my sort of social anxiety, or my introversion, I guess I could call it. But I could read it in my head even as a child, but I think I couldn't verbalize it. And I think that's why a lot of my teachers thought I couldn't read, even though I understood everything in my head. But when they asked me to read it out loud, I would sort of stutter. Damn. So I would say 2nd grade, 1st or 2nd grade. The next question is, where do you read? I just read right here, or here, at my desk. To be honest, I'm not really the sort of person who can concentrate in public. If I'm on a commute or something, I try to read. I always have a book with me and I attempt it, but I tend to be more distracted and kind of engrossed in the surroundings, and I end up people watching more than I read when I'm outside. What kind of books do you like to read? Honestly, everything. I think studying literature made me favor classics a little bit more over contemporary stuff, but that's not necessarily always true. I'll read anything. For me, the most important thing in a novel, in a work of fiction, is how emotionally I can get invested in it, and how moved I am by the end of it. That's my criteria for a good book. I think the perfect book for me is one that's emotionally very moving, but never at the cost of how accomplished the writing is. I hope you can't hear that rooster in the background. My neighbor has a freaking rooster, and so if you hear that in the background, I really apologize. I like books that are quite sad and very emotionally heavy. And I like books that really present a challenge to me. I think I like going through the process of like this slog and this emotional toll of a really great work of fiction and arriving at the end and feeling fulfilled by that experience. A very recent book that I read is Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things, and I think that's a very good example of what I would consider a 5-star read, because it is very challenging both in terms of its language and, you know, its style, but also the themes that it explores. And by the end of it, I was fully just so gripped by the way she ties it all together. To me, that's a really great book. And in terms of what I'm reading right now, I've just started reading The Bastard of Istanbul. I think Elif Shafak for me is sort of hit and miss. I really disliked The 40 Rules of Love. I think I might do like a video talking about her books. But I started The Bastard of Istanbul, and I think it's already way better than 40 Rules. So yeah, I'll be updating you on that as well. So if there is anybody who's watching this who is part of the Booktube community, please leave a comment. Just say hi so that I know that you're out there. And I will be back very soon. The perfect book for me